Just recently in November 2025, US President Donald Trump threatened military action against Nigeria, claiming Christians were being slaughtered en masse. He designated Nigeria a country of particular concern for religious freedom violations. American politicians cited numbers: 7,000 Christians killed in 2025 alone. Some claimed 100,000 killed since 2009. Nigeria's President Tinubu, a Muslim married to a Christian pastor, pushed back immediately. The characterization of Nigeria as religiously intolerant does not reflect our national reality. So what is the reality? Nigeria, the Untold Reality, a documentary. The cost of living. The rain falls on Lagos like it always has. Heavy, unforgiving, turning the streets into rivers. But something is different now. In 2024, inflation hit 34%. Food prices rose by 40%. And the people started asking questions they'd been taught not to ask. When President Bola Ahmed Tinubu removed the fuel subsidy in June 2023, the country that had been holding its breath finally gasped. Fuel prices tripled overnight. The cost of everything else followed. Transportation, food, medicine, hope. By August 2024, Nigerians took to the streets with hashtags and hand-painted signs, #EndBadGovernance. They marched in Lagos, Abuja, Kano. Young people who'd never protested before stood in the heat, demanding what seemed impossible, a government that remembered them. The police came with tear gas. The politicians came with promises. And when it was over, when the streets were cleared and the hashtags stopped trending, nothing had fundamentally changed. Except this: more people were awake now. More people understood the weight they were carrying. The two Nigerias. Let me tell you about two Nigerias that exist in the same space but never really meet. In one Nigeria, the government purchased a presidential jet for millions of dollars while promising austerity. In one Nigeria, young entrepreneurs are building tech startups that attract international investment, creating apps and platforms that solve problems governments have ignored for decades. In the other Nigeria, a mother in Borno State spends 70% of her income on food that used to cost half as much. In the other Nigeria, 46% of the population lives below the poverty line, watching food prices climb while their savings disappear like smoke. The World Bank reports that Nigeria's GDP grew by 3.9% in the first half of 2025. Foreign reserves exceeded $42 billion. Public debt is projected to decline for the first time in over a decade. These are good numbers. Important numbers. Numbers that look impressive in international reports. But here's what those numbers don't tell you. They don't tell you about the woman in Plateau State who stopped sending her children to school because she can't afford both school fees and food. They don't tell you about the young graduate in Port Harcourt who's applied to 300 jobs and heard back from none. They don't tell you about the millions who went to bed hungry while the economy grew. Nigeria creates 3.5 million new workers every year. The economy creates nowhere near enough jobs to absorb them. So they leave. They take dangerous journeys across the Sahara, across the Mediterranean, to anywhere that promises something better than this waiting. The remittances they send back keep families alive. Their absence hollows out the country that raised them. The violence, what's really happening? Now we come to the part where the story fractures, where different people see completely different realities depending on where they stand. The Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project tracks every attack, every death, every incident of violence in Nigeria. Their data shows that in 2025, out of 1,923 attacks on civilians, only 50 explicitly targeted Christians because of their religion. Both churches and mosques have been bombed. Both Christian and Muslim leaders have been assassinated. The real story is more complex and more disturbing than a simple religious war. Well, this might not be the entire truth. The Northeast, Boko Haram and ISWAP. In the Northeast, Boko Haram and Islamic State West Africa Province have waged a 15-year insurgency that has killed tens of thousands. Their victims are Muslims and Christians alike. They bomb markets, schools, places of worship. Whoever opposes them becomes a target. Over 2 million people have been displaced. Children have been abducted and turned into soldiers. Women have been kidnapped, raped, forced into marriages. This isn't a religious war. It's terrorism that destroys everyone in its path. And who are these terrorists? Where are they from? What are they fighting for? Are they fighting for God or good governance? The Northwest, banditry and kidnapping. In the Northwest, armed bandit groups, criminal gangs that have evolved into something more dangerous, kidnap entire villages for ransom. In October 2024, 73 people were abducted in Zamfara state. In March 2025, 287 schoolchildren between ages 7 and 15 were taken in Kaduna state. These aren't religious attacks, to be fair. They're economic terrorism. And given by a higher statistics, they're being sponsored by high powers. Kidnapping has become the most lucrative criminal enterprise in the region. Parents sell everything they own to ransom their children. Communities live in constant fear. Schools close because it's too dangerous to send children to learn. The Middle Belt, farmers and herders. In the Middle Belt, the area where the Muslim North meets the Christian South, farmers and herders have been killing each other for years over land and water. Climate change has pushed Fulani herders southward as the Sahara expands. Farmers see their crops destroyed by wandering cattle. Herders see their traditional routes blocked by new settlements. Violence erupts. People die. And then the story gets told through a religious lens because the herders are often Muslim and the farmers are often Christian, even though the root cause is environmental and economic. The real numbers. According to the National Human Rights Commission, at least 2,266 people were killed by bandits or insurgents in the first half of 2025 alone. That's more than all of 2024. The violence is getting worse, not better. But here's what makes this especially tragic: when foreign politicians claim there's a Christian genocide, they're not helping. They're simplifying a complex crisis in ways that make it harder to solve. They're ignoring the Muslims who are also dying. They're feeding into narratives that can tear Nigeria apart even further. Both Christians and Muslims in Nigeria have suffered. Both communities have also, at times, been perpetrators. The truth is uncomfortable: this isn't a holy war. It's a security collapse in a country where the government has failed to protect any of its citizens, regardless of faith. The humanitarian crisis. Let me give you numbers that should make the world pay attention. Over 7.8 million people in Nigeria need urgent humanitarian assistance. Most of them are women and children. Over 2.3 million people are internally displaced, forced from their homes by violence, living in camps or with relatives, unable to return. In areas of the northeast that are inaccessible because of Boko Haram control, people are facing what aid organizations call emergency-level food insecurity. They can't farm because the fields are mined or controlled by insurgents. They can't access markets because the roads are too dangerous. They're slowly starving. Between 17 and 18 million people needed humanitarian assistance during the 2024 lean season. Think about that number. That's roughly the population of the Netherlands. An entire country's worth of people who couldn't feed themselves without help. In 2024, the Alau Dam in Borno State overflowed for the first time since 2012, affecting over 340,000 people. Floods have become a regular disaster, displacing 400,000 people in Nigeria alone in 2024. Climate change isn't a future threat here, it's a present catastrophe. And all of this is happening in one of the world's largest oil-producing nations. Nigeria exports oil while its own people live in darkness because the national grid can't provide consistent electricity. The irony is bitter enough to choke on. The glittering distraction, entertainment and celebrity. But wait. Switch channels. Change the story. Because while people are dying in Borno State, Wizkid is headlining stadiums in New York and London. While families are displaced in Zamfara, Funke Kindele's film Everybody Loves Jennifer breaks box office records, earning over 1.6 billion naira to become the highest-grossing Nollywood film of all time. While kidnappers terrorize the Northwest, Rema's Calm Down remix with Selena Gomez becomes one of the most streamed Afrobeats tracks ever. This is the other Nigeria. The one the world celebrates. The one that exports culture like oil, flooding global markets with sound and story. Nollywood's global rise. Nollywood produces over 2,500 films annually, making it the world's second-largest film industry by volume. In 2024, the entertainment industry contributed 154 billion naira to Nigeria's GDP and employed 4.2 million people, a 200% increase from 2023. Netflix invested $23.6 million in Nigerian content between 2016 and 2022. Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and other streaming platforms are fighting for Nollywood exclusives. Films like The Black Book and Anikulapo, Rise of the Spectre, are watched by millions worldwide. Afrobeats conquers the world. Afrobeats has become a global phenomenon. Nigerian artists are collaborating with Drake, Beyoncé, Ed Sheeran, Selena Gomez. Wizkid sells out Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Asake is Spotify's most streamed Nigerian artist for the second consecutive year. Tems wins a Grammy and co-writes songs for Beyoncé and Rihanna. Nigerian music generated an estimated $10.8 billion to the economy in 2024. Young people in Lagos are building record labels, production companies, streaming platforms. They're creating wealth in an economy that offers them almost nothing through traditional channels. The paradox of success. And here's what's remarkable, most of this happened without government support. Nigerian artists and filmmakers built this industry from the streets of Lagos, from informal economies, from sheer determination to tell their stories even when no one was listening. But there's a cruel irony here too. While Afrobeats conquers the world, the average Nigerian musician still struggles to get paid fairly because of piracy. The Nigerian Copyright Commission estimates that the industry loses 918 million naira annually to piracy. Nollywood loses up to 40% of its potential revenue to illegal distribution. Young comedians who go viral on social media can't monetize their content properly because infrastructure is poor, internet is expensive, and the payment systems don't work consistently. The entertainment industry is both Nigeria's greatest success story and another reminder of what this country could be if the fundamentals actually worked. The politics of betrayal. President Tinubu came to power in February 2023 with promises of reform. To be fair, he implemented some. He removed the fuel subsidy that had been bankrupting the government for decades. He liberalized foreign currency exchange rates. He took bold steps that previous presidents had been too afraid to take. The World Bank praised these reforms. International financial institutions said Nigeria was finally getting serious about fixing its economy. But here's what those reforms looked like from the ground: sudden, catastrophic price increases with no safety net. Families that were barely surviving found themselves unable to survive at all. The failed safety net. The government promised cash transfers to 15 million families, 25,000 naira per family over 3 months. By December 2023, only 1.7 million families had received anything. The program was suspended due to irregularities, which is political speak for corruption or incompetence or both. Meanwhile, the government found money for a presidential jet. Found money to maintain the lavish lifestyles of politicians who live like kings while their constituents live like refugees in their own country. The system that swallows reform. Nigeria's problem isn't a lack of money. It's a lack of will. It's a political class that has perfected the art of extracting wealth while performing concern. It's a system so corrupt that even well-intentioned reforms get swallowed by it. Ongoing controversies. The trial of Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the indigenous people of Biafra separatist group, drags on. He was arrested in 2015, fled in 2017, was arrested again in Kenya in 2021. His supporters say he's a freedom fighter speaking for the marginalized Igbo people of the southeast. The government says he's a terrorist. The trial has become a symbol of everything broken in Nigeria's justice system: endless delays, accusations of bias, political interference. In northern states where Sharia law applies, blasphemy is punishable by death. People have been killed for perceived insults to religion. LGBT Nigerians face up to 14 years in prison for existing. Women's rights are under constant attack, with legislators trying to repeal laws that protect women from domestic violence and sexual abuse. This is the Nigeria that doesn't make international headlines. This is the Nigeria that grinds people down slowly, that forces them to choose between survival and dignity, that asks them to be grateful for crumbs while the powerful feast. The divide, rich and poor. Let's talk about wealth inequality in a country that produces billions in oil revenue while its people live in poverty. The wealthy elite. Nigeria has billionaires who fly private jets while their neighbors can't afford bus fare. Politicians who build mansions worth hundreds of millions of naira in neighborhoods where people live in shacks. Business magnates who profit from oil, telecommunications, and real estate while the infrastructure around them crumbles. Aliko Dangote, Africa's richest man, built a refinery worth $19 billion, the largest in Africa. It's a monument to private sector capability and a damning indictment of government failure. Why can one man build what the government couldn't in decades? Lagos, the commercial capital, has neighborhoods that look like Manhattan, Banana Island, Ikoyi, Victoria Island, where penthouses sell for millions of dollars, where restaurants serve meals that cost more than a teacher's monthly salary. The struggling masses. But drive 30 minutes in any direction and you'll see the real Lagos. Makoko, the floating slum where 300,000 people live in wooden shacks built on stilts over polluted lagoon water. Ajigunle, where families of 8 share single rooms. Mile 12, where market women sleep on their stalls because they can't afford both transportation, home and inventory for tomorrow. In northern Nigeria, poverty is even more crushing. In states like Sokoto, Zamfara, and Yobe, over 70% of the population lives in extreme poverty. Children die from preventable diseases. Girls are married off at 12 because their families can't afford to feed them. Boys join bandit groups because crime pays better than farming ever could. The shrinking middle class. The middle class that existed 10 years ago is disappearing. Professionals who once lived comfortably now struggle to pay school fees. Families that own cars now take public transportation. People who ate 3 meals a day now skip lunch to make dinner possible. This is the reality of Nigeria's economic reforms. They've made the rich richer and pushed everyone else closer to the edge. The generation that refuses to wait. But something is shifting. You can see it in the #EndBadGovernance protests. You can see it in the young people building tech companies and entertainment empires without waiting for government permission or support. You can see it in the Nigerians who stay and fight instead of leaving. Development despite the government. There are over 130 World Bank projects in Nigeria worth more than $16 billion, focused on education, healthcare, infrastructure. The Adolescent Girls Initiative for Learning and Empowerment has benefited 2.1 million girls in 18 states, providing scholarships, building classrooms, creating safe spaces. The National Social Safety Net program has reached 42 million people with digital cash transfers, 94% of them women. These aren't solutions. They're band-aids on bullet wounds. But they're something. Grassroots peacebuilding. Nigerian civil society organizations are working in communities where the government has abandoned people, mediating conflicts between farmers and herders, building peace from the ground up. In neighborhoods like Dadankawa in Jos, local Christian and Muslim leaders have prevented riots by collaborating to de-escalate tensions, proving that ordinary Nigerians can do what their leaders will not. Youth entrepreneurship. Young entrepreneurs are creating jobs that the formal economy refuses to provide. The entertainment industry alone is projected to add 2.6 million more jobs by the end of 2025. Tech startups are attracting international investment, solving problems in payments, logistics, agriculture, healthcare. These young people aren't naive. They know the odds. They know they're building on quicksand, that their government might change the rules tomorrow, that the infrastructure they need might never come. But they're building anyway because waiting for the government to fix things means waiting forever. The truth about religious tensions. Let's return to the question of religious violence because this is where international observers get it most wrong. Yes, Christians and Muslims sometimes clash in Nigeria. Yes, there are places where religious identity can get you killed. Yes, extremist groups like Boko Haram use religion to justify atrocities. But the average Nigerian Christian and Muslim aren't at war with each other. They're neighbors, colleagues, friends, sometimes family. President Tinubu is Muslim and his wife is a Christian. Vice President Kashim Shettima is Muslim and his running mate in the election was a Christian. Mixed marriages are common. Interfaith dialogue happens daily in markets, offices, and homes. The violence that's tearing Nigeria apart isn't primarily about religion. It's about resource scarcity, land, water, and economic opportunities are disappearing while the population grows. Government failure, a security apparatus that can't or won't protect citizens, criminal opportunism, armed groups that discovered violence is profitable, climate change, environmental pressures forcing communities into conflict, political manipulation, leaders who exploit religious and ethnic differences to maintain power. When these factors converge in communities that are already divided along religious or ethnic lines, violence becomes religious violence. But calling it a religious war misses the point. It's a humanitarian catastrophe with religious dimensions, not a holy war. The real victims. The real victims are ordinary Nigerians, Christian and Muslim alike, who just want to farm their land, send their children to school, and live without fear. Although, the Muslims particularly need to be more enlightened about their religion, they need to be reoriented about the supremacy of God, that you can't fight for God, you don't kill people because the people go against what you believe in. This is evident in the lives of some extreme Muslims that can kill anybody, be it Christian or their fellow Muslims, just because they don't believe in what the Muslims generally believe in. An example of some Muslims going extreme with their religion is the sad story of Deborah Samuel Yakubu, a Christian who was lynched in Sokoto in 2022. She was accused of posting a blasphemous statement against the Islamic prophet Muhammad. She allegedly made a comment on WhatsApp, criticizing the religion-related posts that Muslim classmates discussed in the study group she believed should have been reserved for academic purposes. Another sad story of extreme Muslim killing a Christian over religious sentiments is the case of a Christian preacher named Yunus Alawale who was murdered in Kubwa, Abuja, while preaching in the early morning on July 9, 2016. She was stabbed to death, and the perpetrators are suspected to be Muslim extremists. These people need to be re-educated about their beliefs. And overall, they're being failed by a government that spends more on presidential jets than on the security of its people. And one truth that shouldn't be swept under the rug about Nigerian politicians is that they favor the northerners over the other regions. In the eyes of the politicians, the Northerners can do no wrong even if they kill people recklessly, they say nothing or say just less if under pressure. In our very own eyes, bandits that were captured by the Nigerian army were pardoned and reinstated into the masses saying that they are repentant Boko Harams, while an average Nigerian that was caught stealing just a cube of seasoning in the market because of hardship in the country is jailed for life. Misplaced priorities. What the world needs to know. Here's what I need you to understand. Nigeria is not a simple story. It's a tale of Christian persecution, Muslim extremism, tribal warfare fueled by the greedy politicians. It's a story of hopeless poverty and unrestrained corruption. Nigeria is 220 million people trying to survive in a country that has everything it needs to thrive: oil, gas, minerals, agricultural potential, human capital, but lacks the leadership and institutions to convert those resources into shared prosperity. It's a place where Burna Boy wins Grammys while children in his home state go to bed hungry. Where tech entrepreneurs build billion-dollar companies while most young people can't find work. Where churches and mosques stand side by side in some neighborhoods while people are killed for their faith in others. The question that matters. This isn't whether Nigeria is Christian or Muslim, developed or developing, safe or dangerous. The question is, how long can a country sustain this level of inequality, insecurity, and injustice before something breaks beyond repair? The choice ahead. Nigeria stands at a crossroads. One path leads toward fragmentation, more violence, more division, more young people leaving, more international intervention that makes things worse. The other path leads toward reform, real accountability for leaders, investment in security and infrastructure, economic policies that benefit ordinary people, and a recognition that Nigeria's diversity is its strength, not its weakness. And inasmuch as which path Nigeria takes will be decided by Nigerians themselves, it is important to note that Nigeria as a nation needs all the help that it can get from international bodies, to rescue the good people of Nigeria from the greedy politicians that rather fill their pockets than save the country and protect its citizens, the Muslim extremists that take the lives of Nigerians uncalled for, the bandits and terrorists that are being backed up by the government. Whichever way the international organization can help save lives, they need to do it genuinely and as soon as possible and not with the intention of acquiring Nigeria's resources in return. Closing, a message to the world. If you're watching this from outside Nigeria, here's what you can do. Don't oversimplify our story. Nigeria is not just a simple tale of religious persecution or ethnic conflict. It's a complex nation dealing with complex problems. Support Nigerian-led solutions. The people building peace in their communities, creating jobs through entrepreneurship, making films, writing scripts and music that tell our stories, together with foreign intervention are the ones who will save Nigeria because at the end of it all, we are all humans, it concerns all of us. Help demand that they support democracy, human rights, and good governance, not just oil contracts and arms sales. Consume our culture. Watch Nollywood films. Listen to Afrobeats. Support Nigerian artists and creators. When you do, you're supporting an industry that's creating jobs and hope for millions of young people. Amplify Nigerian voices. Inasmuch as we can speak for ourselves, we need you to listen to us and support our voices when we call. And if you're watching this from inside Nigeria, don't give up. I know it's hard. I know you're tired. I know it feels like nothing ever changes. But change will happen. God will give us the leaders that are thoughtful and mindful of His people. Demand better. From your leaders, from your institutions, from yourself. Don't accept corruption as a normal thing. Don't accept violence as inevitable. Don't accept poverty as your destiny. Build anyway. Even when the government fails you. Even when the infrastructure doesn't work. Even when it seems impossible. Build your businesses. Create your art. Organize your communities. Raise your children to believe in a better Nigeria. Because if we don't believe in Nigeria, why should anyone else? Final thoughts. This is Nigeria. Complicated, contradictory, frustrating, beautiful, broken and resilient. A country where great people and Boko Haram coexist. Where billion-dollar refineries and displaced persons camps exist in the same nation. Where democracy and dictatorship habits compete for dominance. Where hope and despair fight for the soul of 220 million people. The world needs to pay attention to Nigeria. Not because we're exceptional in our suffering, many countries face similar challenges. But because what happens here matters. Nigeria is Africa's most populous nation and largest economy. If Nigeria thrives, it could lift an entire region. If Nigeria fails, the consequences will ripple far beyond our borders. The question is, will the world pay attention before it's too late? Or will we wait until the crisis becomes so overwhelming that intervention becomes inevitable? I hope you'll share this video. I hope you'll have these conversations. I hope you'll care enough to learn more, do more, be more than a passive observer of our struggle. Because Nigeria's story isn't over. And how it ends is up to all of us.